Hello and welcome back to Baited Expectations. I'm piebypie and I have with me Velyna, KittenCatNoodle, and Brittleknee. This episode is going to be a little bit different, so we're going to talk about one specific topic in relation to Path of Exile, and it is trade for this episode. So please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you're enjoying the podcast. That way you won't miss the next one. But first, let's catch up with everyone. It's been a little bit longer than we normally plan to have between episodes. I appreciate everybody being a bit patient to get back to this one, and it's so nice to see you guys again. What have you guys been up to? What leagues have you been playing in? What builds have you been playing? Let's start with Brittleknee.
Yeah, it was a pretty busy weekend for me. Just went by. We had Havoc's Team Blast. It went very well. I was running administration for that event. I think we ended up with like 22 teams signed up in total. It was teams of 2 to 6 players, and the competition actually ended up being pretty fierce, especially towards the end. It was particularly interesting because it's the first softcore event of its kind, like the group found. And overall, the feedback seems pretty positive that we've gotten from the event so far. So hopefully, this is something that Havoc decides to do again at some point. Um, for me and what I've been playing, I hit 100 on the Hierophant, and I did it in simulacrums to rather stubbornly prove a point about the build's tankiness to doubters. And I'm currently working on finishing up a Hex Blast build that I just wanted to do for fun, and then probably going to try some Burning Arrow Ignite stuff on Elementalist next week.
That's awesome. Well, I hope that this Havoc League thing comes back and that we get to keep trying different formats and stuff, because it's really cool to see the community branching out and doing different types of content.
Absolutely.
And hopefully it gives Path of Exile different ways to think about how players can interact with each other in the game.
Which also shows that it also demonstrates that like racing isn't just for SSF hardcore players too. That there is still interest in it even in like a softcore format too, which is really important I think to PoE as far as they approach race development hopefully in the future.
Yeah,
That
I
they know
remember
that
talking
it's
to
like
you
there's
about it
a
before.
right.
You said
Hopefully.
that like we need to have racing from every level so that we have people in the community getting engaged early and actually skilling up in that, so that we can start having different tiers of development.
Absolutely.
And
Like
players.
the more voices that we have wanting this, the better off we are to actually getting something done when the development time is allocated to it.
Couldn't agree more. So let's go over to Noodle. I know you just posted a new video on the lore behind the Maven and the Envoy, and maybe you could tell us what we could expect from it and also tell us what you've been up to.
Yeah, I mean, to try to make that succinct is borderline impossible considering how convoluted basically all of the lines from the Envoy regarding any actual information is. I tried to piece together from his in-map lines kind of the relationship between the Maven and the Envoy, and like the Envoy's past, like who is he, where is he from, is he also a powerful eldritch being, and then kind of tying that into the implications of our decision to just let the Maven into the Atlas and literally give her a GPS to find us anywhere we go, when it's pretty clear that the Atlas is a very large place. You have to do progression to find the conquerors as they wander through, and we're just like, here, new eldritch being, follow me around and watch me do stuff. And especially after you fight her, the pretty clear indication that her progenitor, her creator, whatever you want to call it, is going to come find her. And so that's giving us information about what we can expect in the future expansions as well. It was very difficult to put together, I would say. I felt like I was taking some sort of high-level college class trying to read through this nonsense eldritch poetry that the Envoy just spits at you randomly in no particular order. But it was pretty well received, and I think that even if people don't necessarily completely agree with my interpretation, I think it's obviously open-ended in terms of what he's actually talking about there, and hopefully I made it a somewhat coherent timeline that people could follow, because he certainly doesn't do that. So that took about 30 hours from me in like 3 or 4 days. So I'm a little brain dead at the moment. I am working on finishing. I've basically finished a Hierophant Hydrosphere Archmage, which is really fun for clearing because you just throw the ball around and everything pops, which is very satisfying. It's like shatter sounds and crit lightning explosions. It's very nice. My friend Renbeep actually showed me a different version of Flame Wall Fireball, and if you know anything about me, you know I love Flame Wall, so I'm messing around with an edit of that.
I
But I'm
popped
just
into your stream when Ren was there talking about
Oh
Flame
yeah.
Wall. Ren
Oh
used
my
to
God.
stream PoE as well. She's awesome.
Yeah, she's great. And so just finding another Flame Wall fanatic in someone that is already a friend of mine, I was like, oh yes, let's do this. But I've found myself not really wanting to move on to another build and just kind of continuously searching for harvest crafts. So I feel like I'm in a bit of a loop where I'm stubbornly saying it's just like a couple more. I just need to get a couple more crafts, and then the items will be fixed, and then I'll play with it, and it'll be great. It'll be done. But we're still not there yet. So yeah, I've been busy.
I'm about to have to start farming harvest as well. I don't want to. Vel, what have you been up to? I'm pretty sure you've been posting some build guides.
Well, I've been updating my builds for my Ice Crash, and I recently changed my Hollow Palm Ground Slam from, well, you could do Champion or Slayer because the Ascendant changed. Oh man, so good now. It's so good. Slayers are back, baby. They're the best Ascendancy that's ever was. I don't care what anybody says. Screw all your other Ascendancies. Slayers are in. I'm sorry. I'm just so
Oh my
happy that they're
God.
fixed. I'm sorry. I'm so happy they're fixed. Okay. I feel real good about it. I feel real good about it. And
I missed Slayer too, personally. I played a fair few
it's
of
such
them.
good. It's so good. Yeah. But right now, Slayer stocks are on the rise. You heard it here first, folks. Get in on your Slayer stocks, okay? It's very important. We had a sub goal for Resi 7, and I just beat it yesterday, or 2 days ago. I screamed almost my entire way through as I was being chased, and I hated every moment of it. But it's done, so that was good.
That's
And
awesome.
now I got to practice for the gauntlet as I still as well endlessly search for harvest crafts. Endlessly. For builds, I'm not even going to do anymore because I'm making this stupid meme kinetic bolt impale champion. Because why not?
Okay. Okay.
So, and it's costing me way more money than it should for a build that does like 2 million DPS. That's where I'm at right now. That's what I've been up to. It's been a roller coaster, man. It's been a real roller coaster.
Does sound like it. It sounds like it. It is weird to think that we're on a different version of the timeline, like that we're going to continue doing 13-week leagues instead of trying to do like a shortened league to get back to the same months of new content coming out.
It's very strange to me. Like I'm surprised that there's this much time left because I expected it before.
Yeah.
No.
Like right now, I think ordinarily this time last year we'd be promoting a new league at this point, or very close to it.
Yeah,
Close to,
usually.
yeah.
March, like 13th-ish, usually. Middle.
Okay, I'm not really going to talk about what I've been up to because I really just haven't been doing anything. In my notes here,
You've been busy.
It says me, and then in brackets it says ha ha ha, being in a hole. So
Oh no.
yeah, that was me. Let's get into the actual topic of this episode, this podcast episode. So this episode is about trade, which is convenient because every single one of us tends to play mostly in a trade league of some form. I have a lot of different topics that we can go through that are related to trade. What I wanted to do was start on a positive note. What do you like about being able to trade in Path of Exile? Does anybody have an immediate reaction to that question?
Crafting. Yes. Big bulk craft.
I mean, there's so many items that drop that the fact that I can get rid of them and potentially have something that I actually want is nice if I so decide to do that. You know, you get one good item out of 100 that are on the ground, so, you know.
True. Corrupting. I want to corrupt 800 prison guardians. I can do that. And be sad that none of them corrupt right.
Of course.
I mean,
BK, what do
I
you
still have the opportunity.
What do you like about being able to trade in Path of Exile?
I just like that it exists. I'm kind of a simple lady. I like that considering how rare certain uniques are, I have the ability in a trade league to just go get that rather than, you know, having to then farm for it using however many strategies are necessary. Like, especially with key unique items or certain difficult things to craft, it provides alternate pathways of acquisition for players. So it's really based on your temperament. You get to choose that level of involvement. If I hate crafting, I can take exiles that I farm and throw them at trade and get the items that I need. Or if I love crafting, I can take the time to craft something up really nice and get the exiles for whatever else next. And I think that exchange is really neat because everyone has the different ways to approach the game and how they want to play it. And I like that we have a system of trade that sort of plays to both of those strengths.
Mm-hmm. I can understand that. I think something that I've noticed in at least 2 of the responses has been that while trading is really important, crafting is kind of equally important. And it doesn't matter whether you're in a trade league or in a solo self-fund environment, that the ability to craft your items, or someone needs to be able to craft items in order to actually get the item that you want, has to be,
Well, I mean,
like, they're tied together.
all of our currency is crafting mats. That's what our currency is. It's just crafting mat, right? Every little
Right.
bit of it. So it that's what they clearly from the very get-go intended us to craft. That's what they wanted from us. Then we just found the rarest, most valuable currencies and made our own market. I really appreciate that this league for softcore trade exalts have stayed from 80 to 100C. That has been
Being at
just
100 is so nice. I can actually do math. If somebody puts it at like 2.3 exalts, I'm like, I get it. I know how much that is.
Yeah. This is an easy division for me. I can do this.
And if you
exactly.
tracked app usage of calculator from your desktop, I wonder if in these months it's just suddenly crashed down. You can actually do the math instead of having to queue it up.
There's some leagues where I'm just like, 2.3 exalts and exalts are like 83, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't even care. I'll just give them like 2 and 30C and just be like, is that right? Literally just ask them to do the math for me. But also, BK, what you said made me think of another thing with trade that I really like, is that there are some items that you can technically farm for. I'm thinking in particular things like Watcher's Eyes, right? But they have so many different potential mods on them that even if you spend a ton of time grinding and getting a bunch of Watcher's Eyes, you're not necessarily going to get the mods that are going to be appropriate for your build. And so being able to trade for items like that are even more varied, or even just regular jewels as well, but in particular Watcher's Eyes, there is a way to get Watcher's Eyes. There's no real way to get the one that you want.
No, for sure.
All right. I'm gonna say it's gonna be like you're not playing in regular trade leagues, so you're gonna sound like a broken record response. One of the things that I really like about trading in private league, which is very different to trading in a regular trade league, is that not everything is normalized to a particular price point in terms of currency items. I feel like the term trade is a little bit misused in regards to the standard leagues, because it does kind of adhere to like a standardized economic structure. Whereas in the private leagues, especially when you first start playing in a new, like a fresh league, people will just throw stuff at you, and you don't have to trade for chaos or exalts. You can trade for whatever currency is currency is available. Or if you have like, you know, I've got boots, you need gloves, like that's actually a trade to me. So you have that, and then also you definitely have pay it forward elements, but let's ignore that, because the idea is that we are sharing resources, and it's not this like, I love that it's not this rigid one-to-one, like I have to get the exact value that it's worth concept. It's more like needs-based. So that's something that I really enjoy about it.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that come back to our currency being the actual trading materials in general that sort of creates those sort of like independent self-sliding scales when it comes to trade within different player bases, whether it's a small private league of friends helping each other to one with several hundred to like larger private leagues. We kind of see that scale based off of like the needs of the whole, which is kind of cool. Because if we'd had a two currency system with like the way it was in D3 when there was like items in gold, like you always had like a ton of one and not enough of the other, and then you couldn't trade certain materials, and then items were bound and all that other kind of stuff. It was a hot mess. But it's a really elegant solution to so much that our, you know, primary thing that we count of value in is also something that's used.
I'm seeing some responses in chat who are trying to subtly correct me and say that that's group self-found. Now, I'd like to, sorry, I should have done this sooner, but we should define the parameters of what trade actually means in this episode. And I would like to define that as being the ability to give an item to another player in exchange for whatever you said that being. The ability to have that trade window do a thing. That's it.
Yeah.
That's what trade means. Now, if you want to normalize this to a standardized market because you only want to talk about standard trade league, this is not the episode for that. We are getting perspectives from both or more.
The game runs
perspective.
If you're not self-found on a barter system, right? Sometimes people come at me say, I only have this much, or I only have this currency. And I'm like, all right, let's do the deal, right? There are certain items within softcore trade that have a standardized price. Like gold rims are like for 40s are like 10C or some shit, or like 20C, right? Like those are always the same prices. Most things are like 1 ALK or whatever for uniques, right? Those are the most like standard prices that we get. But overall, it's generally a barter system. You know, there's only certain aspects where we get really rigid with it, like fossils or like big crafting things. Like when you buy in bulk, that's where I want to say rigidity. I don't even know if that's a word, but it feels like a word. Excellent. Good. Okay. Yeah, that's like the only place where I think that and uniques where we're just like, no, this is the price. This is what we're keeping it at. I ain't really moving. Right. But other than that, it's just like, if I have an item up for a day and someone comes at me and says, like, let's say it's an exalt and they're like, I'll give you 70C. Like, make it 75 and we got a deal. I love that about trade. I absolutely like, yes, let us make deals. You know, for me, for you, everybody's getting paid. It's good.
Actually, like,
I enjoy that.
Little anecdote. There's some markets in the world like where the fixed price isn't necessarily there, and you're not necessarily speaking in English, so the salesperson, the sales clerk is literally just like has a physical calculator in front of you and they're putting numbers into the calculator, and then you're like, no, I want to pay this much, and then you put your number in the calculator, and there's an element of that in Path of Exile that I love. But it's funny, I didn't actually put anything in about this, but there's definitely a lot of discussion about trade etiquette in Path of Exile. And one of those things that comes up a lot is if you take the default message from the trade website and alter it with a different price, rather than following up that message with your offer.
I straight up ignore those people. Sometimes I actually block them. I do.
I never notice until they get into my hideout and then they try to offer me something and I'm like, what is this? What is, and then I look at the message and I'm like, you sneaky. If they do it afterwards, like they send a message directly afterwards, I prefer that. Even if they add it onto the end of the original message, I'm like, okay, I can see that. But when they try to edit the original message and just change the price and then offer that, I'm like, no deal.
Can
You
I say,
sneaky.
as a beginner player at the game, I totally made this mistake. Like,
What?
I didn't know any better.
How?
You sneaky. You just
No, I
That's
wasn't being
sneaky.
sneaky. I thought there was
You're
like,
sneaky.
this is the message. I thought people read the message.
Reading
Yeah, we read
in
the
my
message and
Path
we're
of
like, what the
Exile?
hell is this?
Man.
Oh man,
I mean, I think
there's
we've
another
all
thing.
like made some trade etiquette faux pas,
Mm.
though.
Does
If
anybody
somebody invites me and just after they whisper of me, I refuse to trade with them because that shit can get you killed. If you're like in a high and then you just see this window pop up that's like, hi, you want to invite? Like, who are you? Get out of here. I'm busy. You know, that like I will put people on block if they try to invite because that's just rude. That's just rude
Yeah.
shit. You don't know what I'm doing. I could be in the middle of a boss fight and then you just come in here with your invite, wanting my item. Like, get the hell out of here. You know? I feel
man.
very strongly about it. I'm sorry.
It's this. Is there a list anywhere of trade etiquette? Like,
Well, we could talk about that.
Yeah.
The-
Okay.
You know what? There was when the Korean players came into the game, there was somebody who wrote a list of trade etiquette for the Korean players because they didn't know, and I think they wrote it in Korean on the PoE subreddit.
That's so cute.
Yeah.
I kind of love that because if you're sharing the information, it's fine. But if you're just expected to get it from like pissing off enough people that you can't trade with them, it's a bit hard to learn.
Yeah.
BK, you've got any trade etiquette and anecdotes?
I think the one that gets me the most is like what Veli said, like the pop-up windows. It's just like, wait for me to reply or something. I can't stand it either. It's one of those things that like I'm generally pretty chill, but for some reason I see red as soon as I see that pop up. It makes me so irrationally angry and I can't control it.
Laser eyes.
I know. I like Hulk out on that, man. It's crazy. But
I got so happy the other day because somebody like told me like 1 minute when I wanted to buy an item and then they forgot to message for like 5 minutes and I whispered them and was like, do you still have? And they were like super nice. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I totally forgot. Like, yeah, I have it. Whereas I've had people when they say 1 second and then I whisper them like 5 minutes later, they're like, F you, like I'm busy, get out of here. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Jesus Christ, I'm just whispering you. It's like 50C, my guy. Do you not want to sell it? Why?
I'm gonna be honest.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I say the one the double fake out. Oh man. Okay, I'm just gonna go this time.
Gun it.
There's two types of people when it comes to offers. And this is the one thing is I was rolling fizz rolls on a bow because I eventually want to play a bleed bow character. And I was just doing the fizz rerolls and harvest, boom, 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 boom. And then all of a sudden I hit tier 2% and tier 1 flat with like a nice clean lightning roll and lightning res. And those are the only mods on this item. And it's an elder bow, which means that it's going to be super duper easy to clean up and finish. Granted, I get the crafts and all that other kind of stuff. I'm not in a hurry or anything. But as soon as that hit my project tab, which I leave open because if I get a reasonable offer on something that I'm not quite finished with, I usually take it. One offer comes in 30x. That's definitely about what it's probably worth with those two mods on it, and it's 6 linked, and it's the right base and the right eye level, and blah blah blah. The next one comes in at 5, and then when I don't reply within 30 seconds, the guy goes, "Okay, 10." And so I think the pop-up window and the low ballers, like the intentionally just absolutely scamming the shit out of you people, are the ones that get me the most.
There was this guy who every day until I decided to finally block him would ask me for a split personality with dexterity and life. It's worth 2x, 23C every day until I blocked him. And this other guy last week, I had these 2-socket you know those gloves that people like from Abyss. I can't remember their name for the life of me right now. Those
Fist
I had
of
2
Command of the
socket
Pit?
Is
Or
that what they
is
are?
it the
I don't
other
know.
ones?
I can't remember. I honestly have never used them, but I had them. I was gonna corrupt
Yes,
them.
Tomb Fists.
Tomb Fist, yeah. And I was gonna make bank, obviously, off the corruption, because of course I'd make bank off that. And anyways, he kept coming in with a 20C offer on these gloves. I'm like, can you not, like, every day for weeks? Like, please, bro, 20C, please.
That's clearly his strat, though.
I mean,
Do
whittling
you
me down.
Do you guys ever get people who do the opposite, who like insist on trying to give you things when you're trading them? Like,
Yep.
that, I don't know why that really annoys me as well. Because, like, I was streaming the other day, I had something up for 1.5x. He puts 2 in, and I'm like, oh, let me get change. And he's like, no, keep it. And I'm like,
Does he know you're
okay.
streaming?
Yeah, I was streaming. I was just like, all right, like, whatever. But then he's like, hey, take my headhunter. And I'm like, I don't want it. And he kept spamming trade, like the trade window pop up. And I'm like, dude, get out of here. Go away.
Take
Like,
my
I left the
headhunter.
party, but he was just in my hideout. And then he started swearing at me. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening right now. What's happening? Like, why are you being so weird? Ugh.
You know what I do? When
What?
people are like, I want to give you this stuff, I say, give it to my chat. Just give it to them. They want it. They'll take stuff, you know? Or if they give it to me, and then I just give it to people in chat. Like, I don't care. Like, fine, you really want me to take it, or I'll just delete it. 'Cause, you know? It's like, this is an awkward exchange. So I want the chat to have it. I'd prefer if you just gave it to the other people, you know?
I mean, what is trade if not for a bunch of either not happening or very awkward interactions? You know?
I'm pretty sure I have accepted something in this right on screen.
Yeah, I mean, it feels kind of good. Like, I didn't work for this.
But again, I play Pay It Forward League, so I'm a hit and miss type of accept the random trade thing. Like, sometimes I hit a wall and I'm like, okay, if you're going to help me get past this wall, I don't have enough time to invest into the game right now to get myself out of it. So sure, but I'm not willing to accept like a free mirror. That's weird. Well, maybe I am. I'm not sure. Fuck. Mirror is
So that's why I didn't delete it. I was like, ooh, part of me wants that, but also like I don't want to take that. I don't need that. If I'm gonna use a headhunter, I'm gonna earn a headhunter.
Someone gives me a headhunter, that shit is 100% getting deleted though. Like, for me personally.
You know what I'd do? If somebody dropped a mirror in my map, I would bring back the old meme of when that guy mirrored that white wand on the beach. You see that? It was like back in 2000, like, I don't know, 13 or something. I would absolutely go find that base and I would mirror it. The driftwood wand. This white driftwood wand, he mirrored that and like put on. Oh man, I think about it, still pains my heart. I'd have to relive that. I would have, like, you know, you have to do it for the beams.
You guys are just like level 2, and then it's kind of an alright wand anyway, right?
I mean, it was just a basic white wand.
You can roll good mutts on a level white. Okay. Oh wait, no. If it's mirrored, you can't roll anything. Never mind. Okay, let's bring it back into the topics that I actually put in. All right. So my next question is, what do you typically trade for? So there are like a lot of different ways that you can probably acquire things in the game besides the trade window. So I wanted to say, like, there's items, currency, crafts, maps. What else? So what's the first thing that you guys are usually trading for, if not items?
Crafting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big well, I was a big fossil crafter, but now harvest is in the game and I don't know what to do with my life. So fossils mainly, resonators, things like that, to try to make something relatively decent.
What about yourself, Noodle?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm trading, I've actually been using my stream to get harvest crafts. I just like beg people. I'm like, do you have something? I will give you money. Um, but mostly actual trading at this point is just currency exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
BK?
Most of the time I buy bases. Like most of them are ones that already have lab enchants that I'm looking for on them for a particular build. Or like maybe lab enchant and the particular influence that I'm looking for. Because I like to craft a lot more than I like running Uber Lab for boot enchants and all that kind of stuff. So that's usually the shortcut that trade provides me because I do genuinely enjoy crafting. I just don't like the RNG hodgepodge that is crafting, or sorry, trying to get certain lab outcomes. And then it's also kind of cool for certain projects. For example, like my Hyro uses rings that use certain mods from the temple. And so, like, I can't roll that in any regards. Like, there's no way for me to put that on an item. So I usually have to start with an item that has the ability for me to clean it up or fracture it or whatever. Usually I go for one that's got an open prefix and suffix so that I can bench craft and then Crusader Slam. Um, but it's just really cool that I have access to those like shortcuts because if I had to put my old lab enchants on things, it would not get done.
Seems fair. Okay, let's go. Okay, another question that I think is worth talking about is what are your most recommended third-party apps? So that could be website or something on GitHub or I don't know, anything that you wanted to recommend in regards to trade.
Awakened PoE Trade has been the biggest lifesaver ever. It's so good. You know, you control D, it picks all your stats, and the nice thing is that if you're like a one monitor Andy, you can just have it show the trade site on like over PoE. So you don't have to keep tabbing out to check, and you can just whisper through there. Like, it's so much nicer for that. Because I remember having to always tab out, tab back in, tab out, tab back in to remember what my item was while I was searching for it. And this is just like, it takes out all of that extra effort. And it gives you like quick, easy prices if you want to look for like currency exchange too. And at the very top, if like let's say exalts are like, you know, 92C or something like that, it will tell you the 0.5, 0.6, 0.7 ratio. So you don't have
It
to
does
worry.
math for you?
It does math for you.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually incredible for that because I panic under pressure of having to crunch numbers. I can't handle the quick math. Like my brain is just like, I'm gonna make it wrong. I'm gonna make it wrong. Right. So this makes it so much better for me. So good.
I'm not gonna lie, I definitely panicked trying to figure out the maths too.
I don't know what it is, man. It's just like 0.3. What is that?
BK, what about you? Any favorites?
I use Awakened PoE Trade just to, because for the most part, I kind of generally know what items are worth after playing for a while, but there's still like that one item that comes up every once in a while where I'm like, I don't know, dude. It's usually like I can tell the items and their relative worth based off of like builds that I've played before because I've shopped for those items, so I have that familiarity, but it's so good for those lookups if it's like a caster one and I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea if this is okay. Nope, it's crap. Okay, cool. I can move on. But as a quick PSA, Exilence is really, really neat for a completely tangential region. I'll just like one sentence overview. If you are someone who gets super frustrated that you feel broke all the time because you are measuring your in-game worth by exalts and chaos, and you're like, I don't, why do all these people have all these exalts, or I haven't dropped an exalt. Exilence rather is a really good tool for helping you see the value in a variety of the items that you acquire, which all together really, really add up, whether it's stuff that's going into the fragment tab or different cards you're picking up like you definitely have more currency than you think you do, and it sort of takes like a broad sweeping glance at all of your tabs and like gives you a net worth, which is really really good because then it
You
kind of
should
like can
Discord me that.
I
yeah
think
Yeah.
we'll
we
pop a
I
link
think
to all the different tools mentioned in the descriptions for the episodes
yeah,
as
and the
well.
developers are super passionate too. Imacrajal and Kate Kojal, they worked with us briefly on some of the racing projects too. We used to do like little showcases about their app, but it's really nice, especially for like if it's not as important anymore since there's not as much like shaping and eldering maps and all that other kind of stuff anymore, but it was really cool to always like throw a bunch of maps that were and all the crafting materials to craft up those mats into a tab and then craft all the maps and watch your net worth go down and then run all of them and shove everything back into that tab to see if farming that tab was actually or farming that particular map was actually worth it, whether you were trying to evaluate potential card drops or anything like that. Like you could create like a self-contained bubble, like okay, I'm going to put 500C worth of maps and chisels and sextants and alks and everything that I need to roll this map up and then go run all of them. You shove it all back in the same tab. And then it'll be like, oh, look, so I put in 500C, but I got like 1800 out. So taking the time to do this has paid off. I can continue to farm this. This is worth my time.
Yeah.
Cool.
Wow.
Have an issue. Like I had an issue running Exilence, which is why I stopped using it because like I don't know, it would randomly crash and it would crash like so using a lot of RAM. There was an issue with it, but it must be better now because I've noticed it's making a rise. Its stocks are also going up. It is really
Bye,
it's a
bye.
nice program. Bye bye bye. Yeah, it's a really nice program, but I did have issues with it like I'm going to say a few months ago, so it's probably been fixed since then.
Yeah, I haven't used it since like the era of the Tier 2, Tier 3 burial, so it's been quite some time for me, but it's still just a valuable tool for others.
Absolutely. No, it is. It's nice. Like I just recently sold off a bunch of my essences that I've been stockpiling, multiple exalts worth of essences that I
I
just
have
hoarded.
so many.
I
Yeah, you
hate
just
you guys.
hoarding them.
I want the essences. I picked the essence nodes.
It's
And
so good.
Hayrick, me too.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Me,
am
me too.
drowning in deafening essences of greed, and I love it. I'm like,
I
yes,
love
more,
crafting
more.
with them.
As somebody who has made 2 dick stacking builds, it's like essences. Those essences are my life. Sorrow essences have been. I've probably spent hundreds trying to make belts and necklaces for those builds.
I believe it.
But then I just liquidated the other ones.
Noodle, do you have any apps to contribute or websites or cheat sheets?
I don't have any of the fancy apps, and I actually didn't have to use this league, but I've had a few leagues where I've used poemap.live for trading maps, especially when you're starting out in the Atlas and you just like can't get certain ones. I feel like maps are one of the things on regular trade that you whisper 10 people and don't get any response. But here, when it's trade for trade of maps, it's really, really nice for Atlas progression.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna say the map website is invaluable, but I find that it really is subject to like the ebb and flow of how popular the game is, of course. Like more so than trade because I don't think everyone uses it or knows about it.
Yeah. I would agree. People don't really know about it, but it is nice, especially if you're doing bulk exchange. So it's really good for that. And one that nobody mentioned, and I don't use it because I'm too head about it, but Mercury Trade, people use that a lot, and it gives them like macros to say one moment in a map, your items ready to be picked up, things like that, and it's like really nice.
You can always tell when someone has it because it's like an immediate full sentence response.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Mm-hmm. But like I tried to install it, I looked at it, I'm like, this is a lot. So
I had it for a bit, but I stopped playing in those kinds of leagues, so I don't use them
I
anymore.
used to use it. Then my hard drive crashed and I did a reinstall of Windows and I just never put it back on. So I guess I didn't miss it that much. It made me feel professional though. Like,
It's
it's
yeah.
like, hello, good afternoon. Thank you for coming to my shop. I'll be with you in just a moment. Have
Good
some
day,
nice,
sir.
refreshing water while you wait in my head.
With like full punctuation and correct capitalization. It's just mwah.
Exactly.
It just makes me picture people's hideouts having like a water fountain and like a waiting room.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah,
it's
there's
that
like a front desk
flavor.
person who's like, oh yes, I'll let them know that you're here. Thank you for your patience.
Oh man. And I'm over here being like 1 second, then I jump into another map. I'm like, oh the guy. Oh the guy. I'm just oh no, that guy from 10 minutes ago. Shit.
Is he still there?
Oh, no.
Did he leave?
Sometimes they're like,
I
I've
don't
been
know.
waiting. I'm
Is
so
he
sorry. I'm
hiding
so
in the
sorry.
bushes? Because like
Yeah.
I only use a section of my hideout. Like it's very easy for you to like break out and find somewhere to lurk.
One time I invited some guy. I forgot about it and I went AFK for like 3-5 minutes. And he was just sitting in my hideout when I came back and I'm like, what's this for? Who are you?
I think it's worse
Poor
when it's
guy.
someone from your stream trying to
I felt
trade with
terrible.
you, and you've just
Yeah,
gone off
oh.
on a tangent while streaming. Like you're just like you're kind of there, but you're kind of AFK because like mentally you checked out.
Yeah.
I've done that a lot with Harvest Craft. Someone will be like, oh, you have Oddcaster? And I'm like, yeah, let me finish this map. And then they're like, it's been like 3 maps. Can I come get it? And I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, so I'm so
Totally.
sorry. I just tunneled for a moment into my maps. I'm sorry. I just hard tunneled. Oh, there's this one other one. I haven't used it. PoE Overlay. I know we just said that one.
Yeah, I
never-
have that one. I
yeah.
use it. I don't feel like the pricing is very accurate, but it's useful for the basics of trading, right? Of sending messages, having like
Oh, okay.
it gives a little tracker of all the messages that you've sent so that you can like see how long it's been since they've responded or not, which is nice.
I think Mercury Trade has that
little
too.
creepy, but yeah, I mean, for some reason the pricing on it isn't working for me this league. I don't know if I need an update. I don't really care. I don't usually trust automatic pricing unless it's a unique anyway, so whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of people like it. I'm also kind of two brain. I'm like, me send trade message, you respond.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, I didn't put this in the question, but since the development manifesto regarding trade actually coincided with the launch of the Path of Exile trade website, I was thinking maybe we could reflect very briefly on the before and after. I know it was a little while ago now. It's like 4 years-ish. 3 years, 3 and a bit years.
Just a little while.
Just listen.
I still
I
remember
only-
PoE Trade though. Like,
Yeah.
I stopped using it only a year ago. Like that's it. I literally left PoE Trade 1 year ago, and I'm just sad that it's the first thing that comes up when I type PO.
eventually it'll go away,
Gets-
right?
Maybe it might just be there forever, just logged in endlessly. But
I would
yeah,
love to know how often I visit like a specific Path of Exile website. Like if there was just a running tally of how often I visit. Like if it was PoE Trade, that would have been a lot.
It's definitely PoEDB for me. There's no
Yeah,
I go
that's
there
me.
so
My
often.
if I do PO, it goes PoEDB.
Mhm.
The manifesto was November 2nd, 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Ugh.
Ooh.
I mean, the one thing I have to say about like I like their website. I enjoy their trading, but this bullshit increased mana reserve thing, when that's not what it says in the game, actually just like mauls me to no end. Like I have to
Yeah.
find the stat, but you worded it different in trade, but it's not worded that way in the game. So why would you do that to me?
That actually happened to me. I was looking for a Redeemer helmet with reduced mana reserved, and I was like, where is it? It took me
Increased mana reserved,
forever.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's really frustrating too because you can search for negative resist. Like, say, for example, if you wanted to use like Aventers to get like super mega negative resist because you're building around that, like you can just like it's the same thing, you just put a negative in front of it, but they couldn't have done that for that particular stat. It couldn't just be mana reserve. It has and then -5 or +5 or +20 if it's like a unique that creates a lot of reserve, like increases the reserve or something like that. It's just weird that all these other things have ranges, but that particular stat does not.
Do you guys remember when we were trying to search for cluster jewels? Like when they first came out in Delirium League?
Ugh, they're still a nightmare. I mean,
I don't know. I stopped playing in those
Didn't they
leagues.
put like? Didn't they make it so that small passives grants should be a thing with a drop down window?
Yeah,
but
it
that's
gives you
not
the
the
drop
way.
down. Yeah.
That's not the way I was searching for it before. So now my brain's just like, why did you do this? Why did...
It's definitely better now with that drop down, but I still like. I feel like I have to scroll all the way through a ton of added passives because of the wording of it. Like added passives grant, it just has a ton of options before that. So yeah.
Most of the time I just drop in like the actual stuff that I'm looking for, and then I'll click the number of passives twice to make sure that the 8s are at the top, and then go from there, or the floors are at the top.
Yeah, I've been crafting a lot of cluster jewels, so I've been just doing it by the type and then the item level and then doing with the passives, but I don't know. I think their trade site is pretty good, and definitely before they switched to the official trade site, the issues with people being AFK or having already sold the item with PoE Trade was just ridiculous. Like you would message someone and they're like, "I sold this 30 minutes ago," you know.
I thought that was still a problem, particularly this league.
I can tell when someone's using PoE Trade because they whisper me way too late, and I'm like, "Oh, you poor, you sweet summer child." Go
Do you tell them?
site now.
Do you use the official site?
No, I don't actually. I'm rude. I don't tell them anything. They have to figure it out for themselves.
How? How is anyone
really
expected to
cutthroat
learn
world
anything in
out
this
there.
game? It does not teach you
I'm an
anything.
exile, okay?
Is there
I'm
like
an exile?
Is PoE Trade in like the website? Is it mentioned in the help menu? Has anyone looked?
I don't think it's
Anymore.
explicitly stated anywhere that
No.
other ones have a delay, and that one does not.
No, but is it mentioned to use that site to trade?
You're asking us to read again. I just don't.
Yeah, there's this thing that you're saying. I know it's a verb because you're using it in the place of the sentence of a verb, but I don't understand what it means.
Wait. I've never really looked at the help window, but I do know it's got examples, but I feel like I just doubt that they tell you anything there about trading. Path, I've recently realized that Path is the same game as Monster Hunter, as in they give you a shitload of information and yet tell you nothing.
Yeah.
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 That's pretty true.
I'm wondering why we're surprised that, there's a lack of information, considering how certain like launches occur where there's like no help menus, nothing to explain new mechanics. It's just like, here's our new stuff, figure it out. And then
No quest tracking.
next league, when it's a league old, we'll implement some help windows and stuff. It'll be great.
I don't get
Until
that.
then,
Like, I
enjoy
just
your
don't understand why.
frustration.
Is it because it's like, oh, we don't think it's going to go core, so if we do put all of it into the rest of the game, then we're going to have to scrape it all out again or something? Or
I think they just enjoy letting us figure it out, which can be fun for a lot of folks depending on your temperament, and then just absolutely frustrating for others.
I feel like it definitely makes new players feel alienated.
Absolutely. I mean, they've been pretty hands off. Think about it. They don't even Triple G, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you don't even have your own website list of all your affixes, prefixes. It's on a wiki that something else runs. It's not even and that's not even it. We want to go to PoEDB because it actually puts it in a nice order, right? So there's so many crafting possibilities. It's like endless, but they don't even have a list of their own stuff. They have a list of all the oils that you can anoint now, because I don't think that they were like, I just don't think that they thought about necessarily doing that. Now there's just so much. There's all these different delve influences, essences. There's conqueror influences, shaper L. You know what I mean? Like, it's just gotten out of control. It's exploded. It's exploded. So there's no place in the help window where it just tells you like, here are all the list of the potential things that you can get for each item, which would be nice because then I wouldn't have to tab out of the game to go to PoEDB every time.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right. I do have in here, like, let's talk about the manifesto a bit more. The manifesto is from a little while ago, so I'm going to chuck a link to it in chat in case anyone is following along. Otherwise, like, basically this manifesto came out when they launched their own website. Prior to that, all of the trade was managed through a third-party website, which, you know, had access to the API, but was super, super delayed, and affected the, like, usefulness, I guess, of being able to trade, even though the entire game is designed around being able to do so. Is there anything that, if you guys had a chance, have you had a chance to read over this recently, or are we going off memory bank right now?
I read it before we started.
All right. BK,
I
go.
skimmed it.
I skimmed it too.
I don't read. It's good.
It's
All
that
right,
weird
I
verb
just-
again. Damn it. Keeps
Yeah.
popping up.
Okay, I have it open, but it is definitely a big wall of text. I feel that this is like the only sort of straight from the horse's mouth reference that we have to work from. But the game has also changed a lot since the 2nd or 3rd of November when it came out, depending what time zone you're in 2017. So let's try to take it with that grain of salt and maybe hope for something new. Maybe? I don't know. BK, are there like specific things that when you read it stand out to you reading it, you know, in 2021?
For sure. Like the one that I think they make like an entire point about reducing drop rates. It says like in reality, it means the second game either like they're comparing two games. One game has like trade is very, very difficult. The majority of items can't be used by your character, not traded to other people. In the second game, trade is very easy. Many of the items that you can't use are traded to other people for items that you can. In the second game, because of trade, you have a much higher acquisition rate of useful items. And they argue that with a game, if you can more rapidly acquire your items, then they have to turn around and make items drop less often to generate the same amount of like productivity of how fast someone does their upgrades. And we're already seeing this completely independent of them making any sort of actual trade adjustments because they argue against this point. But we are already going to have an item drop reduction as we head into PoE 2 just due to the amount of items being created by one, an increased player base, and then two, the rate of which we are generating items now, regardless of any changes in trade, is like bonkers compared to how it was 4 years ago. Think about it. We have betrayal now. We have
Delirium.
yeah, we have I mean, just like we have so many different like even incursion and stuff like that. Incursion hadn't even happened yet, I don't think, in November of 2017. Just like think of all the different things that we do on a daily basis that just poops out items
Mm-hmm.
compared to this
Delirium.
point being made all that time ago. Like, yeah, delirium
Yeah.
or beefing up even just like normal juicing of maps now because scarabs are in the game is like the amount, there's just the sheer amount of items that we're creating in general. Just like it's funny that they would make the point considering that like they're going to have to do it for a reason completely unrelated to trade. But I believe like the other points that they make as far as like easy trade reduces the amount of times a character improves. Easy trade means reducing drop rate, or never mind, we skip past that one. About the disparity between the players, like the haves and the have-nots, and then the greater abuse by automation. Like I feel like all of those still remain as like a cornerstone philosophy for how they want to control the way players interact with items that do so in a trade environment. And a lot of them I kind of agree with still after all this time. I feel like they're still pretty much in line with how I feel about trade in the game in general. But like for the most part, that was the only one that kind of like struck me as like a whoops, considering how
yeah.
much times have changed.
This
Yeah.
is definitely the section that when skimming, I was like, consequences of easy trade. That's interesting. And yeah, them talking about the drop rate, having too many items to trade would just make it not meaningful, or having too many items drop and it's, you know, we're getting loot pinatas. But not only that, they're talking about, it's too easy to improve your items, but they added things like fossils, they added things like harvest crafting, and they're sitting here saying like, it's we don't want the trade because it's too easy, when these issues are creeping up in other ways, or even talking about automation. Or I don't know if it's in this because, again, I skimmed, so apologies, but I've heard a lot of people say like, if there's changes to trade, we're going to have price fixers. There's all these issues that have kind of popped up organically around what they're trying to do. And so while I agree with the principle that it shouldn't be like, I don't think that everyone should just be able to get every best item super easily, or that there should be, ideally there's not as much disparity between the haves and haves nots, because you can find an item that's going to drop, that's going to be great. Like, it doesn't have to be I'm spending hundreds of exalts to make the best items, and that's the only way to be able to have a good build in the game. But it is kind of funny to see these issues that they're outlining here, granted this is 4 years ago, popping up in so many other ways where
Right, yeah.
it's not really being stopped because of their trade system. They're happening anyway. So like, what do they do? And is it still something that can be stopped with the way we do trade, or is there a way that we can maybe improve trade by making it a little bit easier, maybe having some kind of offline stuff? I know that's controversial, but
Well, look at the Xbone and PlayStation trade. It's
yeah, the
they get
consoles, they have an auction
Yeah.
house where you just have to be online to confirm that you're okay with the trade off the
price,
trade.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like this is a pretty decent system. Personally, I think for things such as crafting mats, currencies, maps, anything that goes in my fragment tab, my map tab, or my currency tab, I should be able to just like do auto trades.
That's like
But any,
always
like,
the same. It's
that
like a currency
'cause
or a
it's
frag or
almost
base.
always
Yeah,
consistent, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So it would save so much time, but like uniques and rares and things like that, I still want to barter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
But
I think the value of barter comes from items that can have great variation to them. It's not as interesting when you're like talking about something that, it's really just, do you have this item and in what quantity? Like when it comes to currency or fossils or any of that type stuff.
It's right now, like, there's so much loot in the game that sometimes when you hit alt, you crash.
Yeah,
you can't even handle, like, I don't even know why they keep around these shit bases when they keep adding new bases, right? Like, get rid of the shit ones then. Nobody wants these. These are garbage loot, and you know it, and you're adding it here to inflate nonsense. Like, there's no reason for this.
They want this whole situation where it's like, I don't know, it's like I don't know how to visualize it. Like, a percentage of a pie. No, I'm using a pie as an analogy, but, like, I don't think pie is right, because it's the sense of like funneling down. So you start out with this massive stuff and you have to refine and understand how to get to like this end of the funnel of what is good and useful and will benefit your build. And I feel like it's more that the funnel is widening so much.
Like, base decay needs to be a thing. Like, as like, I understand
Absolutely.
that like a drift 1/1, like you can't give somebody like an imbued 1 at level 1 because that's bullshit. But like base decay should happen retroactively too. Like, as you level on, like,
Absolutely.
you should not see driftwood 1s in your level 82 area. Like, that should
Yeah.
not happen.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense to keep these. And I know that they said with Heist they were trying smart loot where the items would be generally rolled better. Sorry, somebody's doing construction above me apparently. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but
howling to me.
It sounds like
Yeah,
a
it sounds
very
like
angry
there's a wolf
Muppet.
pack.
I think somebody's like drilling into a wall or something. Like all of a sudden they decided this is the time to drill. Anyway. But like, I know that with Heist they were working on smart loot, so we have seen like little tidbits, because when we open up chests we get like, oh, that's actually kind of nice,
I think Ritual had it too, right?
Yeah. some of the stuff was
ritual.
kind of nicer, but
I found that
I've seen
Yeah,
some.
it's
I've
just-
seen other people get good things from ritual.
yeah.
Yeah,
I want to say
yeah,
the smart
yeah.
loot thing seemed to really only come into play when you're in like the end of the acts, but then as soon as you hit maps, it's sort of redundant again.
Like, I'm actually malding at the fact that I can get +1 wands low level, but I can't find a single good smart loot +1 wand in like a T16 map at all. You know?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, no. I mean, I've had like a level 2 or level 3, eye level 2 or 3 wand the whole time. Like, I literally cannot even.
No, because it's actually better. All you got to do is craft on, like, if you're a cold dot, craft on the 20%, and boom, you got a wand for the rest of the league.
Mhm.
Like, that's frustrating. I don't want to use the level 1 wand for the whole league.
I
At
wanna make
least
the
with
better one.
ritual, you can like see that there's loot there. I always love opening up a
Yeah.
strong box and then you just see like a pile of items flying out, all nicely animated, and none of them get through your loot filter. And you're like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all just
Cool.
sad.
Great. Moving on.
disappointment, my favorite gift of all.
Too real.
Exactly.
We have quite a few good questions still to get through, so let's reel it back in. We only have a little bit left for the episode. We kind of covered this one already, but like if you had to sum it up, and I'm really like, guys, like one sentence, not a big paragraph. What are your frustrations with trade?
Bots.
Okay.
Wanting a very simple item like a map and having to message 15 plus people to even get a response.
Okay. BK?
I want a toggle. I want like a global toggle to say, yep, I'm open for business, or no, I'm just busy and don't want to do this right now, because turning off every individual tab is bullshit and I'm not going to do it. And most of the time that I ignore trades, it's because of that. So I want a global toggle.
Okay. And I was expecting it to like
That'd be
someone
sick.
to say something about harvest crafts, but I'll be that person. I know it needs to be said.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Do it.
I don't actually care that much, but I'll say it. It needs to be said.
Say it.
The fact that you can't, like the way that harvest has been made core with the limit of 10, but then the inability to trade, and then what is effectively a trust-based system, which is screwing a lot of people over, and then pushing that external into a Discord server or, you know, whatever people can get their hands on. It just doesn't seem to be consistent with the rest of the game.
It's absolutely fucking bonkers. Did you know Path of Math lost 100 Exalt chess piece because some guy who was trusted on that trade thing just took it? He just took it.
That's so messed up.
Yeah, and it's happened. There was another guy who was trusted on the trade thing that just decided to exile people as well and got away with like 500 Exalt worth of items. Because you're just supposed to inherently trust exiles to do the right thing. Right?
You know what I don't get is why did they give us 10 crafts, or like even bring this in if they seemingly don't want us to be trading crafts? Like, why limit us to 10 and then also like just assume that we're not going to trade them? Because if you could have, I mean, obviously if you could have more, you could still trade, but it's like you're limiting our ability to do projects, but like you still want to get valuable things that you know other people will want, because there's so many mods that they left basically every harvest mod on. So how did they not know from harvest and just from Path of Exile having trade systems that we would want to trade? It seems like they had to have known we're going to trade them, right?
The harvest implementation in general is just so clumsy, and it makes me think that they had started to design the end game with like the different sections having harvest without being entirely sure on the numerical values everything should be, from how often you find it to how often you find the seeds to maybe even the bench cap. So I feel like adjustments to harvest and stuff are still coming, but the idea that they would add it back into the game without some sort of like indexing for the the bench crafts in general, some way to look it up, is just, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's silly. I know they
It's
rely on
bizarre.
third-party tools for a lot of things, but considering it's like a direct crafting method, the same as like having fossils for sale,
Yeah.
that oversight is huge.
I mean,
Right. If you look at like PoE Map, right, that's a third party, but it's doing something that PoE Trade, well, not PoE Trade, you know what I mean.
Yeah, the other
but
one.
like the trade site can already do. Whereas they're
Mhm.
having to facilitate a trade that's not technically possible in the game through their systems, and it's just rife for being scammed. It's
it just doesn't
ridiculous.
make sense because like bench crafts are standardized in the sense that like everyone can acquire them in some way, unless it's like we can talk about unveiled items or veiling items. That kind of craft, that's the RNG element is what makes that particular type of crafting the most frustrating one. The fact that you rely on RNG to acquire the ability to do those crafts is the same frustration that we experience with Harvest, and yet you have an example of bestiary having those like different orbs and things that can be traded. So you can trade the monster, you can trade like. I don't understand why there's such a lack of consistency in terms of like if you are going to base crafting on an RNG system, then there needs to be a way to preserve or capitalize on it. And saying that you can only have 10 of them, like the intention of GGG seems pretty clear. It's, you know, like we don't want you to hoard this, but we're also not going to make it very easy to use.
Yeah,
I think.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Is it going to be a double fake out again?
I swear.
I think that they knew for sure that they wanted Harvest to go back in the game, and I was honestly very surprised when it went back in at full power. Honestly, like jaw hit the floor, completely flabbergasted. It went in at full power, and I think they knew they wanted it in the game, and I don't think they really had the time or consideration to like really properly balance it. So they put basically like a parking boot on it on purpose because like they want it in the game. They got to get it in there because it works with the in game. They've already invested in it, but we don't know what we actually want to do with it. So let's just put a parking boot on it so that it's there. It won't go anywhere and we'll reassess it another time. And it's so frustrating.
But they always do that. Like
That feels pretty accurate. to me.
reassess it at another time is kind of like, okay, but that's been happening to so many elements of this game. Why? And this one, the feedback in the like community, just experiencing Harvest League firsthand, let alone bringing it into this league, like surely you had to understand the implications of those decisions.
Yes.
I would have preferred a different system. Like, give me a lot, like, take out the really, really powerful, like, singular crafts, like the stuff that's just too direct and can guarantee certain rolls, and like leave far more of like the rerolls and stuff. But then let me bottle up as much as I want, and then also like let me find it a lot more often. Like I would have been fine with like a more accessible harvest system that was more in line with like what fossil crafting is, so that I still would have a choice of how I wanted to craft versus being gated into a system where every single road leads to harvest and then that road is like, here's 10 slots, wait your turn.
Yeah, and honestly, it doesn't gate shit for the people who are rich. It doesn't gate a goddamn thing. They'll just pay the money again and again, countless amounts of exalts. And honestly, if you're that rich, maybe you should have all the best things. You've made all the money, you've earned it, right? However, it like everybody else is sitting there just struggling, and the thing that they wanted to stop us doing, which was making these god tier items so easily, doesn't affect people who make money like, you know, like they're Pablo Escobar or some shit, you know, making exalts like it's crazy.
Right.
Just raining down cash. So it's like it's a little, I understand that they don't want us, they want us to work on items and make them happen on our own and things like that, but it's taken me 2.5 weeks to just put life on a fucking belt by myself. Right? Like Jesus Christ. Running the Hamlet every time because I don't want to interact with the trade because I'm a lone wolf who doesn't like that interaction. So and then just asking my stream like, hey, I have these crafts that I'm never going to use. Do you guys need them? I'll give them at discount because I really need to get rid of them off my bench.
Right, because if you are running harvest and you run into
Mhm.
og speed, right, and you don't have anything, but you know people want that, right? You get
Yeah.
og crit, you're like, I don't have a thing. I guess I could start a base and use that and sell it, or I could just ask stream if they want it, right? But it's
Mhm.
like mentally for me, seeing that valuable craft, and that's also why I'm so surprised that they kept in the og. I'm not
Yeah.
surprised that they kept in remove specific. I think that that's fair, but remove add and add, I'm like, that's just crazy to me because it's so powerful and you can't resist it. So if I'm
No.
running there, I have like 7 items right now I'm working on, and I actually have a written list of all of the things that I'm
Oh my
looking for right
God.
now. But if I
Um,
see Og Caster, I see Og Crit, I see Og Speed, I'm gonna save it because my brain won't let me leave it alone. And
Yeah.
then I have to figure out how to sell it.
I think the situation with harvest is that like the cap of 10, it
Mhm.
forces a type of play style that does not come naturally to the player base.
At least not
Could you
naturally to
elaborate?
me.
I mean, I know the best version that I've heard of using this, the 10 crafts, like basically the idea would be to continually go through them and just throw them on stuff as often as possible. And I know BK in the past has said that she's always got like a couple of bases on the go that she's crafting. And if you're not a confident crafter, why would that change in regards to harvest if it hasn't been the case with other crafting methods? It forces like the player to do something outside of their comfort zone, but doesn't necessarily teach them or like hold them through the process, which is obvious. It's more of a system that's and like that affects more than just this. This is part of how Path of Exile is. It doesn't really hold your hand through anything, but
No.
this I feel like the potential is worse in this way. All right, I really don't want to make this all about how we bitch about Harvest League because
No.
there's
I love Harvest.
Is just
We
an
just need
aspect
to
of
trade.
trade, right? It's just
We
an
just need
aspect
to
of
be able to
trade,
trade.
and it's a new one. It's new to us. Like, it's new to everybody. The biggest thing I find is that, like, I don't necessarily want to craft on other bases because then I feel I'm spending too much time in Harvest. And then it's like I've been in there for 20 minutes picking up other bases to try to roll, and I'm feeling like, like I'm feeling the clock tick, and it makes me anxious, but that's just me. That's like, and I'm a big hoarder in the game. I have assets on assets, and I just hate it makes it really hard. My hoarding is getting out of control, is what's happening.
I feel like it means that you can't really focus as much on like one project and you need to have like
Yep.
several on the go, and I don't know, I just don't have the capacity in my head to like handle all of that. But I also have that feeling of like if I see a Shabi, I can't leave her. Like I have to go in because how often do I like get to see Harvest in general? It's like a giant stop sign in the middle of your map.
Yeah. That you need to stop at because you want something from it.
I was late to my D&D game because I went in like 15 minutes into a harvest like 15 minutes before, and then I was like, hold on, I need 5 more minutes. I'm just looking at all the things.
Sometimes I AFK inside of the harvest because I need to like reset my brain and then try again.
Or look at all the possible mods and like the bases. So you're like, ooh, wait, if I save this augment and I put it on this base, like what are the things that I could do? Yeah.
All right. So I've asked this before, but like let's just be clear. Have you guys used any third-party trading things to get through the harvest thing, or you guys have just tried to go it alone or share crafts, within your communities?
I use TFT only to gauge the price, and then I just ask people on my stream.
Okay.
Legit. That's all.
BK?
Yeah, primarily community trading. We've developed our own sort of like harvest stuff from within our community because we run a pretty tight knit community in general. So we have the ability to like look up crafts and people can post what they've got and edit it and all that other kind of stuff. And then for the most part, TFT is just like a price check tool. I don't want to be involved in all of that because it actually just offers no actual security.
It just seems like a big forum, really.
Yeah.
And Vel?
I'm a big lone wolf, but I do trade with my community if they're there. I'm like, hey, anybody need AUG speed? Anybody? No. And if there's something like for a price, I'm like, what is this? Like 1 exalt, guys? I need. I don't actually know. I asked them. They could be lying to me. It could be like a 40 seat craft, and they're like 1x. I'm like, sure, just take it. Just take whatever. But that's about all that I do because I don't that level of interaction, it's a lot for me. Like to go to some site and trust somebody, you know?
It is kind of interesting how being on stream can be beneficial. I've had people
Yeah.
who were actually new to the stream come in and ask about a craft that I had saved on my bench, and I'm like, well, I don't know you. And so they'll do collateral, and because they're on stream, like everyone's gonna see who they are if they did something
Oh
bad.
yeah, like having that the video evidence of like insurance and like a bunch of people
Yeah,
watching you
yeah.
keeps you in
So
check.
I was looking for a ton of remove ad influence for a staff, and I had a couple people offer, and they would give me collateral and then do it. And they're on stream, and that means like, it's basically like a CCTV footage or something. If they try to screw me over, like they're caught, and I'm gonna, get the stream police on them or whatever. But it is interesting. I do think that's an advantage for us because I don't trust. That's then
No.
the sentence. I just don't trust. I don't know. I don't want to get any of the
People
systems. I've seen way too many people get screwed over, and especially if I've been working, I don't even care how much the item's worth. If I've been working on it for a while, giving that to a stranger and just assuming that they're gonna do the thing I want and not just willy-nilly decide I'm gonna ruin your item or I want this for myself. No.
Yeah, fam.
No. Well, I've had
was
good
thinking, well,
experiences.
oh,
Go ahead.
I was thinking while Vel was speaking that like the advantage of being a streamer is just the ability to ask your community if you can trade something, but the CCTV element of it, adds just another layer, and I just can't. Like, this game is not designed around people being fucking streamers. I gotta say
Right,
that.
no.
Like, I know that one for sure. So, what are you guys thinking, GGG? Like, in fact, this is not the first or only instance of it being designed around, like, or something needing to be relying on stream. The other really noteworthy element of relying on stream in order for something to function is the racing scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's true.
Anyway, that's something that I was thinking. Do we want to try and theorycraft a better system right now? I think we've talked about them before. Do you guys have any particular ways you could see it going down differently?
As far as like how to implement the harvest trading, I think to fix harvest trading requires fixing like a lot of different UI implementation issues in the game, because I think that something similar to, I think we talked about it last time, I think the implementation of the WoW trade window would be beneficial. But I don't mean like within the actual trade window. I mean like separate out the will not be traded part of the WoW window and make it something that pops up and happens every single time you interact with a bench that's doing some sort of craftable thing. So whether it's the actual crafting bench, whether it's a double corrupt altar, whether it's a harvest or like crafting station, like it should pop up the UI where you put your item in. There's like a dialogue option that you put like either your currency in, and then there's an output option that tells you what they're about to do in a double confirm window. And then
Yeah.
nothing actually leaves your inventory. The stuff that's maybe in that little window as far as the monetary aspect of it is traded, and then you can actually visually see. And if someone hits like re-roll life instead of like remove add life, you're like, yo dude, what the fuck? Or
Mhm.
similarly, like you can be like, oh no, you clicked the wrong thing, I'm sorry, like can you like, because I some of this might even happen on accident, some of it's a direct scam, but either way, like at that point in time it's your fault because you've hit confirm. Just the same way as like if you don't
Yeah.
check if it's an actual 6 link, like it sucks, it happens to a lot
fault.
of people, but like that's a learning curve in Path of Exile. Check your fucking items. Like then it's your fault. And so
The
like
other
that
thing-
double like confirmation window is like essential, and the whole like don't actually take my item and put it somewhere else. Like no.
Oh, I was gonna say one of the solutions for Harvest League, I think, in terms of like being able to trade from the same window or something, would also be the solution for how to use an incursion temple properly. Like this, it doesn't have to be limited to Harvest. These solutions
No.
have like value in terms of wider game
I
use.
like what Suit said. Suit said, what if we take like divine vessels and use them to put an enchant in them and sell it instead? And like, what if we just did that? What if there was like an orb that we used to just put a craft in and sell that orb? Like that
Well,
would be
that
so much better.
that would be the easiest way, and obviously
the
that would
best
be the most intuitive way, but I think the
Yeah.
reason we're never going to see that, and I think why BKs would be more realistic to what GGG would actually be willing to do to compromise here, is that they have this hard 10 limit with your station. You make orbs, all of a sudden there's no limit to the amount of crafts that you can save and then sell, and if that's
But
something
there's
that
no
they
limit
really
to the
care
people
about.
with money. There's no limit to them anyways.
Well, there's the limit of you're having to trust other people with your items. If you could just
That-
put every craft on an orb, now you've got the whole quad tab full of horde crafting stations all over again.
Essentially, but I mean, it's like that's already happening, and it doesn't have to be with that, like incursion
Yeah,
things
it
too,
is.
right? Like the double corrupt, like just put that in an orb and sell that. Just sell
Well,
it.
it's kinda
Although it
like
is
what we
really
said
easy to
before.
farm now.
Right? Where it's like they're doing this, they're justifying the trade system to say that it's going to help reduce these things happening, right? With, price fixing, drop rates being lowered, which is something they're doing on their own.
Apparently.
But they have this idea of what they want, and there's always going to be ways to circumvent that. But it's just that I feel, there are people who are going to get around it and they're going to be successful, but it's going to limit significantly more people who are not willing to have that kind of gamble or don't have the currency to have that kind of gamble with their own items, just giving it to some random person.
And the same thought process though too is like, do we really want more currency bloat? Like an interactable
I mean, at this
altar
point, I
that
got
preserves it,
8,000. I got 8,000 watchstones that I got to roll with 8,000 different mods. So what's another 1,000 currency things, right? Like at this, like I'm feeling so overwhelmed by all this shit I have to roll and do and deal. I have a tab full, and I mean it's getting real full of Elder Guardians because I'm busy running Maven shit. So they got to go off to this, and it's like, just pile on more shit. Let's go. Let's go. Like just let's do
But this would save you tab space. BK's version
would
of
like
double
that.
confirm would save you tab space. Now you don't have a bunch of orbs. You just gotta,
It might, but I still don't necessarily like the double confirm. I feel like they'd be less inclined to add a new window because they haven't changed the UI since
Yeah, they would have to actually do a
2005.
UI update.
Yeah, you're right. That's the thing. They'd have to change the UI, and that's the only reason why I'm like, they'd probably just give us an orb, honestly. Like an orb that costs a certain amount of money, because that's just easier to throw in the game than to change their UI.
I think it's interesting that you note that, because while they won't change the UI, they're willing to add new UIs. Like there is now a UI bloat, I would argue, because there are now 2 benches and 2 fucking stashes in our hideouts right now.
3.
Yeah, that's why I think that for the most part it should be like a separate UI, not something in the existing trade window, so they don't have to actually like alter that at all, or like update it, or like deal with that level of whatever spaghetti code is, and in that. But like making it a separate UI as they've designed these other ones that then interact with key specific crafting things, and then creating that as a base print, like moving forward, if there's another league in the future that has like this sort of like crafting aspect to it, they can just sort of like toggle that on, so that like if it's this type of bench, then it can produce this type of window when somebody else clicks on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a new bench would be an interesting way to do it, because if you're both in a party,
like
maybe
that.
you can both click on it and then it has its own new UI,
Party
since that
bench.
seems to be how they like to
Party bench.
Yeah.
I would like that. I would
Party
be
at my
against
bench.
Baited expectations
My party
approves new bench.
Yeah, I think the idea of like a party bench that is specifically about interacting with content that isn't itemizable, it's not. Honestly, party bench should just be a thing that you can use even with like your own crafting bench in your hideout if you want to share craft.
I don't know why somebody can't just use my bench for crap because they want to. I mean, look at the poor prophecies.
They have
now.
to
What have they
pay
done
the
to my boy?
bench. It's not like they're paying you.
I had to pay an Exalt for like a Unbearable Whispers 5. It killed me inside because they changed the thing, and I'm like, I don't do any of these other.
You couldn't get it in Heist anymore.
No, you have to actually do the prophecy
You have to
chain.
do the
I'm like, well, this
progression,
sucks.
What? I didn't even know that happened. Okay, my bad.
Yeah, they did that. Now it's like an Exalt. Sad. So sad.
Okay. There is a question that is here. Do you think GTG will make some in-game harvest trading options? We already talked about that, but do you guys think it's impossible with the 10 cap, or do you think it's possible with the 10 cap?
I think if they index the crafting bench and then come up with some sort of solution for us, whether it's like something that I suggested or something else that they think of, or any of these suggestions like orbs or otherwise, I think it'll largely eliminate a lot of the issues with the 10 because you're going to be able to get it out to people a lot faster.
Mm-hmm.
That's only if there's like it's actually like the UI option or an orb or something that's independent of trusting another person. Then you'll instantly sell the stuff, like, because people will just buy it, or people will trust the the way of trading the item through the UI or otherwise. I think that the 10 won't feel so restrictive if there's actual avenues, but if they don't, then it's still going to feel bad for as long as it's in the game.
Okay, so anyone else got any thoughts on that, or we good to go to my final question for this episode?
I just think they want us to do player interaction, and they like us to suffer a little. It's a little mix of both. I mean, it's enjoyable. Look, they have a log of how many times you've died to volatile dead, okay? They know. They enjoy this. Volatile blood, rather. Like, they know. Yeah.
Okay. Noodle?
No, we can move on to the last one.
Okay. I had this one earlier, but I think it would be it's a good one to end on. Even though it goes from like we started out the episode with like this positive like perspective, and we're gonna end on this one. Is trade a deal breaker for you? How bad would it have to be for you to quit PoE? Anyone have immediate reaction to this? Because I do see this regularly mentioned on the Reddit. Like, I'm done. I got scammed, or I'm done. It's just unplayable.
I've mostly just stopped trading that much. I mean, but I still do it if I have something really big to sell. I just don't bother a lot of the time because I don't want to spend the time with it. I think trade would have to be abysmal, unfortunately, for me to like leave PoE, and that's why I'm not even trying with TFT, because I have a feeling that kind of situation, opening myself up to that kind of situation, would make me rage quit. But I mean, I just don't do it as much, I guess, if it pisses me off.
Yeah.
Honestly, I fucking love this game. So it would have to be like the only thing I couldn't do on the regular is SSF because I hoard. So if they took out my ability to trade, that would be like the deal breaker for me. Other than that, I mean, listen, I've been playing since when I had to use trade people's actual stores on the website, where you had to go through and there was a variance of different prices for things. So I literally bought something for like 40C, and then you check a store that's 7 pages in and they have it listed for 5C. So like I literally played when it was that bad. so I was willing to do that. I wouldn't like if they did that again. It would be awful. But I'd still play the game. I'd still play. It would be a full SSF that would take me out of it because I can't. My hoarding is already really high.
BK?
Mm-hmm. I found that as like there's these different trade issues that crop up, whether it's, like the API bog down that happens at the beginning of every single league, it seems like now. In other ways that I've more and more and more sort of straddled the divide between SSF and trade. Like I've become more self-reliant, I guess, in certain regards, either early crafting or otherwise, because I know like it is not as reliable as it used to be, or can't, keep up with all the different things that are being listed. So I don't know. I've sort of, like I understand where my frustrations are, and I sort of like stayed away from the things that are directly frustrating by becoming more self reliant. And in turn, that's
Yeah.
helped me enjoy the game.
Yeah.
I think that's
My main thing is I like to buy bulk mats, right? That's it. That's like what I like.
yeah. I would like to build on BK's point, and then I'm also seeing some like pro SSF sentiment in chat as well. So the premise of Path of Exile and ARPGs in general is this idea of being able to trade items, but it's increasingly becoming counterintuitive to how people want to interact with the game. So we become more self-reliant, but then the design is still focused around this idea that you can still trade these items. So we end up in this sort of like cycle of, okay, if they're going to keep designing things so that we can trade, but then what they're doing isn't easily tradable, or the experience is poor, or there's like vulnerabilities to it, then we keep going, oh, I'm going to play more and more solo self-found, be more self-reliant, being able to craft things better, but the entire crafting experience is like very dependent on that. I guess it's like a catch-22. Like, are you really achieving your development manifesto goal if this is the result? That's probably the point that I would like to leave it on. Although, my final, that's my final note, I think, on this. We did a really, really quick episode, so appreciate everybody for hopping on into this episode. If you did like it, please make sure you subscribe, and I will be back probably in 3 weeks with some other new content to talk about, or new old content. I don't know. We'll update with that. Anyways, what was the funny little thing that I said last time? It was thank you for watching to the end. I guess we got you hook, line, and sinker, and we'll see you next time.